As you know, today marks the last day of the Olympics, and it's a bittersweet experience. I think of the Tokyo Olympic Committee and how they must feel after many years and billions of dollars invested in this event, only to have to postpone it a year and then eventually to have it with an empty stadium. They lost a ton of money, a ton of viewership. It was not the same, but we're grateful. The athletes are most grateful to be able to compete, some being able to compete who wouldn't have been able to a year ago because of age restrictions. It's a bittersweet, but for the people of Japan, when the opening and closing ceremonies is meant to showcase their culture, their history, it was a, again, bittersweet pill to swallow because they did something, but not on the scale that we remember the Chinese Beijing Olympics or Russia or elsewhere, Rio. It was hard, and it must have been very disappointing for the Japanese Olympic Committee in many ways. We've all experienced disappointment in our lives. Maybe it's a marriage we went all in for, and only to have it fall apart. A job that we had invested our whole life, sweat, tears, blood, and equity, only to be shut down because of the pandemic. A career cut short because of the pandemic. A loved one whose life was ended on a sour note during that year of the shutdown. We've all experienced some profound heartache where we've put so much into it, only to see it all taken away in an instant. That's what the prophet Elijah is feeling in today's first reading. He goes out into the desert not to pray, but in the hopes of dying. This is enough, Lord, take my life, right? Why? Well, he had fought against the evil Queen Jezebel and Ahab, the king, against these prophets of Baal. She had erected all these shrines throughout Israel, and he warned them, if you do this, we will be conquered and destroyed. You must turn back to the Lord. And the people were being carried away by Ahab and his wife Jezebel. And so he has this showdown on the Mount of Carmel with the 450 prophets of Baal versus Elijah, the lone remaining prophet of God, right? And you may know the story, but to cut it short, he eventually slaughters all of the prophets because they fail to prove their God is the true God, and Elijah does. And the people of Israel witness this and say, there is no God but the God of Elijah. And he thinks, yes, finally I've turned this around. Finally I've created this groundswell of people against Ahab and Jezebel, the king and queen, to restore God's covenant in his land. As soon as Jezebel finds out what he did to her prophets, she says, have him killed immediately. So that's where Elijah's going. He's running away. In an instant, he wins over the people of God, and even more quickly, Jezebel wins them back and puts a price on his head. He is totally devastated. All this effort for nothing. He doesn't want to commit suicide. He's a prophet. He knows better. But he's hoping God will do him a favor and just kill him before Jezebel gets her hands on him. And it would be much worse. In our church today, after 2,000 years of consistent teaching from before the scriptures being written through the early church fathers and the writings of the scriptures themselves and to the most recent teachings of the Catechism of the Catholic Church and Vatican II, we have always taught consistently that the bread we eat in this Mass is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ, that only those who are baptized, who are washed, who have been reconciled, and who believe what we believe can receive the Eucharist and only do so worthily. But 2,000 years later, the latest Pew Research Foundation studies show that only 29% of Catholics believe in the real presence. Right? The bishops and the Pope can feel like the prophet Elijah. 2,000 years, Lord, of teaching the same thing, and now 71% of Catholics, not Protestants, Catholics don't believe this. Just kill me now. I'm tired of this effort, right? We can feel so frustrated like Elijah. But why? Why do so few Catholics believe what we have always taught? You know, in the gospel today, the people of Israel, Jesus' time rather, murmured against him. Isn't this, what do you mean I've come down from heaven? It's Joseph and Mary's son come down from it. You were born in Bethlehem. We saw you grow up as a child in Nazareth. What are you talking about? I came down from heaven. They're so familiar with Jesus that they don't take what he says. They take it for granted. They don't believe it. And maybe as Catholics, that's happened to us. Our whole life we go to Mass, and maybe like you, or like me, you were forced to go throughout your childhood, and you resented it. I did, and look what happened. Or you come week after week, you're like, same Mass, blah, 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 different day, boring, right? When the people were starving in the desert, and they complained, God gave them manna from heaven. And after eating manna for days and years, then they complained, we're sick of this manna, it's coming out of our ears. In Egypt under slavery, at least we had a variety of foods. As Catholics, we can be like them. We're sick of this Mass, it's boring, the same thing, blah, blah, blah. Entertain me, God, it tastes gross. What's the point? This is so boring. And we can become so familiar and so accustomed to the routine that it no longer has any meaning. That was the struggle that Moses had with the people back then, that Jesus was having in the gospel today, and that we're having now. And we see this resurgence of growth in the Protestant church because what's happened? Well, it's great entertainment. Man, those are some great concerts. They're built with the stage, the music, they're rocking it out for Jesus. It's engaging preaching, it's lights literally and sounds and excitement, and it's so entertaining, and people are like, well, that's more exciting, let's go there. That's boring, same thing, different Sunday, blah, blah, blah. And the growth in Protestant churches are extraordinary, and I love Christian concerts. I mean, I've been to Red Rocks for Chris Tomlin concert. I love going to those. But nowhere in John chapter 6 or the other Gospels does Jesus say, come, let's get together and rock it out, right? He says, come, take this and eat it. This is my body. Come, take and drink. This is my blood. Do this in remembrance of me. It's a divine command. It's not like, hey, if you got any time after that great concert, come on over, let's hang out and have a little meal together. It's a divine command. This is what Christ taught. This is what Christ left us. But if we don't have a relationship with Jesus, it's boring. If we don't know his love for us personally and genuinely, if we haven't encountered Jesus as a real living God who is man, then this is boring. And communion does taste terrible. And what's the point? We do the same thing every day, unless there's a relationship. And that's what Jesus is drawing the people in today's gospel into. Everyone who listens to my Father and learns from him comes to me. It's about having a relationship with me that we don't take for granted, that we deepen and grow, that we open our hearts to receive, and we respond in kind to a God who has loved us unconditionally. No, not that anyone has seen the Father except the one who is from God. He has seen the Father. To be seen by Jesus, that is to be known. Jesus, I want you to see me, and I want to see how you see me. I want to see in your face, Jesus, in prayer, how you look upon me, to know the truth of who I am, to be transformed in the truth of who you are. Because without that relationship, I'd prefer a concert too. This is boring. At least we have cushioned seats and cushioned kneelers in Europe. They don't even have that. It's painful and boring. But if there's a relationship with Jesus, nothing can keep us away. Nothing can stop us from coming to fulfill that divine command. Christ is calling us to a personal relationship that is a foundation for why we are here. But it may have never happened in all of our years of catechesis and prayer. Right? It didn't for me for many years. And my catechesis was terrible. And I preferred other things to this. And there wasn't that relationship with Jesus that was personal and real and human and intimate. And so I was bored. And I'd take naps in Mass. And I wanted to leave. I wanted to come late. And I wanted to leave early. And I wanted to do something else. But when I experienced Christ as a God who is real and risen and who loved me as I am, everything changed. Everything. I realized that this isn't just bread. This isn't just a boring liturgy. It's an intimate encounter with Jesus who gives me his very body, blood, soul, and divinity. Something I cannot get anywhere else. No matter how great the concert in Red Rocks, No matter how beautiful the mountains when there isn't smoke, no matter how great the meal or the fellowship of these friends or this travel to here or there, it's in the Eucharist that I have this intimate encounter with the God who loves me and who wants to give his very life to me and for me. Your ancestors ate manna in the desert, but they died. There's so many offers out there that just leads us to spiritual death. It's entertaining, it tastes good, it's exciting, we love it, nothing wrong with it. But when it replaces this relationship with Jesus and his divine command, take this, all of you, and eat it, take this, all of you, and drink it, do this in memory of me, then we've spiritually died. Because maybe we take him for granted. Because maybe we don't really have that relationship. Jesus says, I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Whoever eats this bread will live forever. He doesn't say whoever rocks it out will live forever. Right? Whoever goes to a Broncos game will live forever. Right? Whoever goes hiking in the mountains will do all those things, but never in replacement of this. And the bread that I give is my flesh for the life of the world. This isn't ordinary bread. This isn't just another boring, repeated ceremony. It's Jesus who comes to you personally, who speaks to you individually in the scriptures and the prayers, and who gives his very life for you, that you may have life and have it to the full, that the joy that is in God might be in you, and everything else has a different transformative meaning. Because this is at the foundation. This is the center, the source, and the summit of who we are. Nothing can compare. Nothing can equal it. Nothing matters more than our Eucharistic Lord. We invite you after Mass today to see the many times that Jesus has gone out of his way in miraculous events to see the truth of what appears and tastes like bread. It really is the flesh of the heart of Christ, risen. It will be in the parish hall after Mass, our Eucharistic miracle display. Go if you doubt. Go if you're struggling. Go if you're unsure. Go if you need reinforcements. There's nothing Jesus hasn't done to make it more clear that this isn't a symbol. It's not a magic wafer. It's Jesus. But without that relationship, it really is boring. It doesn't make sense. And we, like the time of Moses and the time of Jesus, can murmur just the same. But if we believe that it is Jesus, and there's a relationship that undergirds it, then we wouldn't miss this for anything.